back on another exciting episode of Starfleet So Hail, where we have a casual and informal conversation about Star Trek. Today, we're talking about Star Trek: Strange New Worlds under the Cloak of War. This is episode 8, right? Yeah, episode 8. Yeah, we only have 2 more
Is it
episodes to go.
episode 7? No, it's
8.
episode 8.
8.
I just watched. No. Yeah, it's episode 8.
We went on 5 minutes early just to shoot the breeze and let folks arrive. So don't worry, we're not going to talk about the episode. I guess Text Trek does this. Man, Father's going to say that I copy everything he does now.
Nothing is original.
Well, I feel like some things could be original, couldn't they? AI's not original in its product, but that's an original thing that's happening, right? Nah.
The less said about AI, the better.
The what's that?
The less said about AI, the better.
It's gonna be really interesting, Robbie. I envy your youth because you are going to see things in your. May you have
Terrible
many years.
things,
First of all,
probably.
what's that? What's that?
Terrifying things, probably.
No,
You
it's
know?
not gonna be terrifying. Humans are not gonna let it. Have you not seen every movie where AI tries to take over? It's not gonna happen. We're gonna burn. We would fight. You'll be fine. I know you'll fight. You ready to take down the AI? Would you take up a pitchfork?
Depends on what day of the week it is, to be honest.
What's that?
Depends on what day of the week it is.
Yeah, it's true. Wednesdays, what is it? Tuesdays are for beheadings. Wednesdays. Wednesdays are for destroying AI. What are Sundays good for? Hanging out and talking about
Coffee and contemplation.
Hey, so are you still drinking coffee, Robbie? May I ask you personal questions like that on the live?
Of course you can.
Okay, cool. Are you still drinking coffee?
Yes.
And like, how much coffee do you consume a day, do you think?
Too much.
Oh no,
No.
okay.
maybe probably just a cup, to be honest.
Oh, that's what I do too. Like I have 1 cup a day and that's it. That's my
Although it
limit.
gets dangerous because we have these espresso cans at work, and usually I work later, so I can't just have one at like 7 because then I'll not be able to get to sleep. But you become addicted.
Oh
So it's
yeah.
like, oh, a nice cold can of coffee sounds good.
Like at 11 at night or something? Like
No,
how
like
late? Oh
7 or 8, but then you won't be able to get to sleep at 11, you know?
yeah. Till like 2. If I had a 7 or 8 o'clock cup of coffee, I wouldn't be able to sleep. Unless it's we have this really great espresso variation called Cuban coffee here in Miami, and it's famous. You can look it up on Google. That stuff will keep you awake the whole like for 30 hours. It's so strong. But it's so delicious too, so I highly recommend it. Let's see here. We got 2 minutes before the official start of the video. What else? Let's see. You can ask me a question. Since I asked you about coffee, you can maybe something that you think the audience would want to know about my personal habits.
I don't know, time here.
Or just count down the.
What are you watching right now?
Apart from Star Trek, what am I watching? Oh, Foundation. Oh my gosh, I'm watching Foundation season 2. I'm on the latest episode 3, and it's really good. Did you see Foundation season 1?
No, it looks like a pretty show.
It is a pretty show.
Else about it.
It is a pretty show, but I read the novels when I was a kid. Isaac Asimov wrote them. There's like 4 or 5 novels, I think. It's been so long. But anyways, the first one's really worth a go. So if you don't want to see the show, I highly recommend that you read at least the first Foundation novel. Benjenium, have you been watching Foundation? Are you still there? Are you still there? Hello. But yeah, we used to do. I think I covered Foundation season 1 on Starfleet So Hail After Dark. I don't remember now. Oh my gosh, there's so much Starfleet So Hail content that I don't remember what I've put out anymore. It's crazy. There's a lot of content. For better, for worse. All right. So see, look, Lee Pace is hot stuff. Yeah, and like he's good looking too. He's a hot actor though. He's very good. I think he makes that character really interesting. Anyways, now that it's officially 11 a.m., Jill has arrived. I can skip the first few minutes, right? Yes. Jill just hit the live. Oh, I don't know if you're hearing me. Oh, she won't hear me for like 5 minutes. Yes. Oh, wait, I can type it. Yes, hit live. There we go. Voila. Okay, so anyone who is there in the audience, catch up by clicking the live button and you'll be here. All right, so now we're going to talk about this episode. Robbie, do you want to do this episode summary since you watched it pretty freshly?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Basically, what's the ambassador's name again? General.
Oh no, this is
No,
terrible. I haven't
General.
finished pulling up my notes.
I just watched the episode. I can't believe I forgot.
Doc Rawl, right? Isn't it Doc
Raw?
Rawl?
I don't know.
Is it?
Um,
Someone in the audience save us. Hey Ruben, nice to see you there.
okay,
Carry
should
on.
I go in
Well, yeah.
timeline order or?
You know, I really appreciate the way that Text Trek did it, where they talked about it. This is your summary, so you can summarize it however you want to. So and you know, just like you challenged me, I challenge you to keep it under 5 minutes.
Okay.
So you can just go plow through it.
Mabenga and Chapel face tensions as a Klingon general from their past stirs up memories and opens flashbacks to their past.
Opens wounds.
Yeah, opens wounds. We see Mabenga and Chapel navigate their past and Pike trying to heal the wounds of their present.
It's very exciting, right? Because you have this like Klingon who you know, a Klingon person who is trying really hard to sow peace, which is basically unheard of. Even when there's an armistice or a treaty or like a peacetime, Klingons are pretty like, oh, we don't really like the Federation. So it's a big deal. Sorry, I interrupted your summary.
No, that's okay.
I'm gonna turn it into like 20 minutes.
and so the general tries to wow, that reminds me of Superman 2 General. The general tries to make clear that he's here on a peaceful mission, just like the Enterprise. But despite that, Mabenga and Chapel don't buy into it. They only go along with it because of Pike, because of their loyalty to his captaincy. And it would have been interesting actually to see more of Chapel's point of view, but we'll get back to that. We see the general and Mabenga uncover some truth. It turns out that the general is full of it, as Jill says in the audience, has built his position upon lies, and who knows whether he even cares about peace. It could be just some ploy to get higher in power. Although I assume he isn't paid, but who knows?
Well, he lives in the Federation now, so he doesn't have to worry about paying for things. Remember,
okay. So he doesn't really.
Yeah, like we're post scarcity. Federation is post scarcity. I believe even at this time, at least by TNG, it's 100% like, oh, money doesn't exist. Yeah, but yeah, carry on. Sorry.
So after Mabenga reveals that he was actually the butcher at that Klingon moon, Jigal. No, wait.
Yeah, Jigal, you got it right.
Jigal. I was thinking of Jigar there. But that's Babylon 5, I think. And this, well, it's kind of left in the up to the audience's interpretation, really. But after that, we see Chapel run out, and we hear Mabenga say "don't" after we saw a knife out on Mabenga's point of view, and someone makes a move, we presume, and the general is stabbed. Um, and Chapel, the interesting thing is, Chapel goes on what she said, but who knows whether she knows the truth. Mabenga could have easily told her, "No, I was fed up with him," and I feel like Chapel would have covered. So it seeds some doubt in Chapel towards the end. And it's interesting that Pike didn't investigate more after that last conversation with Mabenga. Um, I feel like in that moment, Pike probably was doubtful, but didn't open it up because he knew Mabenga had gone through so much pain already, and
Yeah.
knew. I feel like at that moment he was just at peace with the fact that I am in a crew full of flawed individuals, and I'll just make peace with whatever Mabenga has done and move forwards, which is interesting.
Wow, yeah, that's really kind of how I read it too. But also, to me, it felt a lot like it's a very complex scene. That whole last part of this episode is, I think, it's amazing. First of all, the conversations that are going on online around this, and just like the different ways you can interpret this. Like some people are saying that there might have been self-defense, such as myself. That's where I'm at. And then other folks are saying that this was Dr. Mbenga finishing what he started in a way, on Jagal when he killed um, the general's men, and in that instance he was meant to kill General Rawl, but then he escaped. And so this is like, this was like him honoring the senselessly killed people that we saw, like, and just ending the story. And then there's another take that, like, maybe which I really thought was interesting, this I heard on the salon, which is that maybe Ambassador Rawl was trying to, because Klingons, when they're dishonored, they'll commit suicide, so maybe he was trying to kill himself. And
But
and
then
he knew
why
he
wouldn't
would know.
Mabenga? Oh,
That's
because
when he
Mabenga
says
would take
don't.
that as
That's when
right.
Dr. Omega's like, don't,
But
like,
then
don't take
Mabenga
your
would
life.
say, wouldn't he? Wouldn't he say that?
Well, maybe after, we don't know. It's so unclear, like, yeah, you're right. There, I have to watch it again. You're right. But
It could
it's
be
like
so many
what's that?
things. It could be so many things.
So many
And
things. I love that it's left open. It's frustrating that it's left open because we can't have a consensus on this one. There's no way to,
but
like, just
that
all.
means it's everyone's story, you know?
Yeah, it's
It's
good.
like a murder mystery, you could have had that
Well,
last
it's like
scene
the
at the
start of
very
the murder
start.
mystery. You know
Yeah,
what I would love to see is, like, Star Trek Columbo. I'm not even joking. Who
this
would be
actually felt like it could have been if they tweaked it a wee
but,
bit.
like, this is the prelude to, like, then the detective story that comes into play.
And the
Uh
past as well that would fill in the details.
Yeah, it's true. It's true, that would be cool. Wow, we really got to the heart of the matter. We did, like, good summary, by the way, Robbie. That was well done. Let's see, we got Jill saying Raw is full. Oh, we already got that. Remember, the Klingons in TOS were more like the Romulans in TNG, sneaky. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Chapel told him before to go get the child killer. So, oh, okay. And then the frustration lies in perhaps the most miserable 2-year cliffhanger ever. I don't know. Do you think there's going to be a follow up to this episode? Mick Jost, I think, posted on Twitter that the author of the court of Ad Astra Per Aspera, or the author, I think, was invited to season 3. So who knows? Maybe we will see a follow up on this episode. But what do you think? Do we need one?
I don't think we need one, but I really would love one because
Yeah.
this episode fleshed out Mabenga and Chapel in a way that we had not seen before. You know, I'd been complaining that Chapel, all that Chapel gets as a storyline is based around Spock, and Mabenga basically was just a doctor, and we didn't really, apart from that episode actually, which was great about his child, but that was a little cliche. This episode could have easily been cliche, but in my opinion, it felt deep. It had lots of layers to it. It felt theatrical, and I thought Babs put in a really great performance that was quite weary and um, not
Yeah.
angry, so that it was like Kira, where it's always firing up the top, but it was, you know, underneath, and it was um, he seemed very contemplative. But I'd love another episode that focused on this, but I don't know how you do it. You couldn't just bring another Klingon aboard and have the same kind of
Right.
story, and you couldn't
So
have
we
a
have
court
to.
trial. That would be too similar to Una's episode.
It's
Do you mean
great
like a
because we
flashback episode, another one of those?
or I think like all joking aside, I mean I kind of am serious about the detective Columbo investigator, I should say, and bring in a neat guest star to play the investigator, just like
Una's lawyer.
it could come back. I don't know. That could be another way to get that character to come back. But aside from that, the interesting thing is that Dr. Mbenga is the one the character that we know pretty much the least about in TOS. There's like two brief appearances that he makes, like, or two episodes. He's only in two episodes in the whole original series. So they have a wide range of things that they can do with this character. Did you expect him to be and Chapel to be involved with the Klingon War? Do you like that development for these characters?
I do like that
And
development
Ortega's,
because
we can't forget to talk about Ortega. Sorry, carry on.
I don't feel it really worked for Ortegas because we don't really explore it. So um you know, we got that line in Among the Lotus Eaters. Ortega said, you know, I've done this 100 times during the war. I feel like that's the only other time we've heard this crop up.
Well,
But it does
and
kind
then
of one line in styles.
Boimler says you're a war hero to Ortega's, remember?
Hmm.
Like, oh, Ortega's, you're like a war hero. So like that's something that Ortega's is known for, or remember, for Jill pointing out that, just like yourself, that Ortega's is left behind again. But anyway, sorry, finish your thought.
Um, it's kind of, it shows growth, even though these characters, you know, hate the Klingons, but they're now in this very professional position of medicine. Well, they already were in a position of medicine, but they are now part of a family and they are healing. And the only time the past really cropped up is because the Klingon came and those wounds were reopened. But I feel like it gives more depth to Chapel, and I'm just really glad to have Chapel have a storyline outside of Spock, even though I do like that storyline. And I'm glad that we didn't just get the scene in episode 1 where they were fighting Klingons with the stupid syringes, because that was not deep or interesting. It was cliche and boring and melodramatic, whereas this was deep. This, if we hadn't had this episode, then I would be really disappointed in these backstories that are pointless.
Well, yeah, but I feel like it's great that we've kind of built up to understanding exactly, we already kind of were starting to feel, at least for me, I was starting to feel really connected to Chapel and Dr. Menga's plight, because they're war survivors, and Ortega's too. And in this episode, I really felt very drawn to Ortega's in that scene. But I think I never expected this development at all. Like in my TOS, like what happened in the Pike era fantasies, I never imagined that we would have this. But I think it's very interesting and compelling that they did do it. it's an interesting development. How do you feel about the fact that like we're getting a lot of these characters developed here in Strange New Worlds, but then like if you watch in linear order, by the time you get to TOS, they're like secondary characters, like, and then Una disappears completely. We'll find out why about
Great,
Una, which is you like that, yeah?
because it offers a lot of. You can't complain about them making more interesting stuff in the future. They can't change TOS. They can't. So
Right.
you can't complain that they've not given us very. If they'd given us just the characters from TOS, and it's not TOS's fault, it's because it had 3 seasons and it was the nature of television back at that time. We wouldn't have got the same
And
character
you
development.
watched TOS, right? You watched it all the way through. I know you were on a bunch of our discussions.
Um, I feel like I've not watched every episode.
Oh, okay, that's fine. It's
Or
good.
if
You'll
I have,
discover.
probably one. So I might be wrong at some parts with TOS.
Where did you rank? I think DS9 is still your
Yeah,
all-time
DS9 is
favorite.
always my favorite.
And where does TOS rank after DS9? I forget for you.
So it probably goes, let's see. Do you want me to
DS9,
include the new shows as well?
you're gonna be like DS9, TNG.
Um,
No, just
you know, it's
kidding.
it's probably like that. DS9,
You could do new shows, yeah, all the shows.
all the new shows. That makes it even
Yeah.
harder. Um,
Oh my god, I put you on the spot and made you rank.
DS9,
I'm sorry.
TNG, Strange New Worlds, Lord X, Enterprise Season 4. No, Enterprise Season 4 might be higher. I don't know. Then
All right. Well, okay,
TOS is
but
probably
Strange New.
last, actually. TOS is last,
Really?
not because of the
Wow.
quality, it's just the pacing, and I know I'm one of those horrible people that just doesn't watch it a lot. I prefer the characters and the pacing and the style of stories we get in TNG DS9 a lot more.
Wow. I mean, I don't I don't have any like kind of like
No, TOS wouldn't be last. Sorry, I'm including the new shows as well. Discovery is probably last.
really
Um,
Discovery. Oh wow.
because I felt like they were doing some
Enterprise
great.
is the last. I'm sorry for me. No, actually,
Fair enough.
yeah.
But I feel like that 4th season of Enterprise is amazing. If it's the rest, then it can go away, but that 4th season is brilliant.
I like that you clarified that when you were ranking. Anyways, there's an interesting comment here that Jill made. Hey Braxton, look at that. Folks are pouring in, having coffee with us. This is great. I'm not actually having coffee, I already had it. That's why I'm wired. People are going to be disappointed when they get to TOS and see Uhura, Abenga, Chapel underdeveloped. I'm okay except for Uhura. My heart breaks if people are disappointed with Nichelle. Yeah, that's a really good point that Jill makes there. But I really think that Nichelle didn't get a chance to do everything, and she'd be happy with what's happening with Uhura. I don't know. I just feel I don't want to speak for Nichelle
I
Nichols.
see in my head there's nothing less interesting that happens with Uhura and TOS. We just don't happen to see those stories. You know, Stranger Worlds could have been the same. We could have just got the really boring Uhura episodes, but we just happen to be seeing the more interesting ones.
You know what I would love to see is a flash forward episode similar to how this one flashed backwards. Like it'd be neat to have a episode that took place on the Enterprise during a known mission and have everyone kind of like
Doing
kind
more
of showing
interesting
that.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, like all the other characters. It'd be really neat. But yeah, it's weird. Strange New Worlds, in many ways does pose a threat to, I guess, uh, you know, like people who love these characters and want to see more stories about them are going to feel like, oh, I'm going to watch TOS and learn more about Uhura. Well, it's going to feel like you're, but I think what you'll learn is like more of like the Uhura, like important kind of moments from there on. And Nichelle Nichols just like, is an actor worth watching, whether it's like whether she's on screen for like 5 minutes or like a whole hour, she's phenomenal, and she gets better and better. Like just off the top of my head, like the scene in Star Trek 3 where she puts the young lad in the closet is just so good. But I love her. So yeah, I think there's that aspect, is to go, like, there's no way you're gonna watch the original series and think, and not
Oh,
know
that
that it
makes
was,
sense.
what's that?
Joe's comment, remember Uhura's memory wipe? That would also make a lot of sense of the stuff in Strange New Worlds being, um, I don't know,
Oh
removed
yeah.
from her character.
Yeah, but also that is going to be hard. I think I wonder about that memory wipe. I got to go back and watch it, because my impression is that, like, she had to relearn, like, how to do
Languages,
certain
yeah.
things, but that her memory loss may not have been permanent. But
Mm.
if it was, that's actually pretty sad, because that means she doesn't remember anything she did in Strange New World. So that's kind of like, poor poor Uhura. Like, she's doing all these awesome things. She met Mariner and Boimler, and
I
and
was
now,
really
hey, look at that, cake's here.
I was really hoping, something interesting. They were gonna give us something interesting with Una when Boimler seemed scared of her at first, until we got there was just the pin-up. 'Cause I was like,
But
"Oh,
that's not interesting. You
they
didn't
can
find that
explain
pin up.
why Una leaves
Right, right.
it's hard to see her
I think we're
leaving.
gonna
But Pike leaves. Maybe she doesn't want to serve under anyone except Pike, you know?
I think we're gonna get really good news. I have a lot of hopeful feelings that Una gets her own command, like an actual ship, or, like, maybe even becomes a Commodore, like gets skipped ahead or something like that. Like, um, it's gonna be interesting how she handles, the Illyrian plight. Like, I'm very curious about the continuation of that story, because you know, I think what am I doing? Enabling captions? Oh, you know what, Jill? I don't know how to do it on a live. All right, thank you. Are we sounding too drowned out or something like that? Anyways, I got distracted. But regarding Una, I hope can she be the president of Illyria someday? Yeah, something like that. I'd like to hear something like that about Una's character. Let's see. Hopefully people will take into consideration how long ago TOS was made, and will learn of the ego of Shatner, and that he had to be the center of attention and demand the most lines and screen time. I think that's like something that's like known, right? Didn't he write about it himself or something? I don't know. It's
Everything I hear about Shatner just seems awful, you know? Even when they tried to get him to return for Enterprise, they were gonna have him be the chef, but they didn't do it because he asked some ridiculous amount of money.
If
Um,
William Shatner's the devil, then he is the one devil that I have sympathy for. I don't know. I really
you like
like
the
Captain
idea
Kirk.
of William Shatner.
Yeah, it's true. I don't know. The idea, it's a pretty, yeah, I guess so. I don't know. Maybe I'm just trying to, like, keep Captain Kirk of the era a certain way in my mind. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's weird. But speaking of William Shatner, Robbie, since we're already on this subject, since we're wildly off topic for this already, uh, there was a really cool post by Trekyard. Shout out to Trekyards on Twitter or X, whatever the heck it's called now. How do you feel about? We'll talk about X later. But anyways, so in Strange New Worlds, there's a very good possibility we're going to see George Kirk at some point on screen, because they've already, I think, mentioned him. Sam and Jim were talking about him. At the bar. Remember? And then I think so. So some folks are like, "Oh, William Shatner could play George Kirk Sr., right?" But, like, he might be too old. What do you think about him playing Tiberius Kirk? Like, what do we even know now that we got some Trek experts in the audience? Like, what do we even know about Tiberius Kirk? Like, I want to know if Tiberius Kirk is a cool character that we should probably meet. and then played by William Shatner. There you
I'm
go.
seeing a haunted Halloween story, and occasionally William Shatner's face pops up.
Oh my gosh, they could do a spoken word episode of Strange New Worlds, and it would be with Tiberius Kirk. That is my next ask. Now that they've already crossed the musical barrier, I think the next step is to do a spoken word barrier, and it should be hey, don't you think a Tiberius Kirk spoken word episode of Strange New Worlds starring William Shatner is like
Special episode.
it's just like the perfect thing, right?
Who knows? Maybe he's on the musical.
I also, by the way, stand hard to get George Takei on Strange New Worlds as well, because it would be really cool to get him on live action Star Trek
Or get
again.
Jonathan Frakes to be James T. Kirk's dad.
I would, you know what? I would approve of that if they could change his appearance enough to make it believable. Because like then he just looks like, or what if
charisma?
Or what if the Rikers are somehow connected to the Kirks, like maybe on the mom's,
That feels
on the
a bit
mom's side.
too fan servicey. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a bit too fan servicey. All right, now we've gone out of control. What have we not covered of this episode? Probably a lot, but there's a lot of discussion I think that we did talk about. Oh, the other question I had was, in your summary you touched on Pike, and I guess we could talk about like Pike's. What do you think about Pike and Dr. Mbenga's relationship after this? That end scene, to me, it's pretty clear that now Pike is kind of like, he has a doubt about Dr. Mbenga, like, and this might be the beginning of like a disconnect that, maybe they still remain friends, but like I think philosophically we're seeing some kind of a disconnect here. What do you think?
I feel the same way, but I don't know that Pike is gonna change his. I feel like personally, yes, he has a doubt now, and feels a bit wary in this episode. But with time, we kind of forget these things sometimes. And if Mbenga doesn't happen to bump into any other Klingons, I feel like Pike's relationship won't really change with him. But it would be fantastic character development if we saw some through line, some philosophical disagreement that was based in this episode. Because also Pike doesn't disagree with his crew members a lot, and this would be a great episode to kind of, if they could naturally kind of weave that into an episode, that could create some really good conflict. But we don't want the show to get too, melodramatic or anything. But I hope that they follow through in the stuff they've shown with Mbenga in this episode, because it was really compelling. They've already mined a lot of the stuff from TOS. We've got to Pring, and even in Amok time, we had the chapel kind of pining after him, bringing the soup at the start. They've kind of taken that. They've taken a lot of stuff from TOS, so I like that they're also adding new stuff as well.
The show also does, in this episode, I thought does a great job of taking a lot from Discovery as well, which kind of like, I really love it when Strange New Worlds connects to Discovery, because to me, this is the Discovery era. Like Strange New Worlds is a part of the Discovery, what I call disco era of Star Trek, other people like to categorize it by showrunner. So maybe, the Kurtzman era, if you will, or whatever, versus the last era, which was the Berman era. Does J.J. Abrams count as an era?
No.
Do the
No
movies count? There's like 3 solid movies, right?
One of them is terrible.
Because I would count Harve Bennett as an era, right? He produced the TOS films. That was definitely an era because there were enough of them. There's six movies.
I struggle with the Abrams era because it feels to me like a reprint of a fantastic show with removing all the elements that made it fantastic and turning it into a very wide audience kind of action. It's like this is Star Trek but for cool kids.
Oh
Um,
wow,
that's just my
Robbie, are you a time traveler or something? Did you grow up like in the 1920s? No, I'm just kidding. That's very old fashioned, Robbie. No, I'm just kidding. Uh, no, I don't know. I was expecting because I was there in 2009 when that film came out, and there had been like this kind of like dry spell of new Star Trek before that because Enterprises had ended. Like I don't know, it was
imagine that
like
had been successful though. I mean, it was kind of, but if that had been, if they'd made a whole new era based on that kind of format that Abrams had styled, then I would not
oh
be a fan. I would not be a Star Trek fan.
I didn't. I have to investigate. There's a comment there where
Like if there were
it looks
shows and stuff made in that kind of style, I wouldn't be a fan of
wow.
Trek, honestly.
Well, I guess we're gonna have to call it then the Kelvin era, so that we can leave. We'll just refer to them by their primary defining factors. So you can say the TOS film era. That we'll just do it like that. So yeah, we're in the disco era. Back to that. I appreciated that this episode really went hard back into the disco era. I saw a lot of critiques that were nitpicks that were quite interesting and perhaps valid about which uniforms should have been there, and so on and so forth. But we've seen
I
now, I
feel like
think,
they could
enough.
have been different on a war front. You don't really know, you know?
Yeah, but Jagal was an interesting thing. It felt like we were actually, to me, it felt like we were back in Discovery in a weird way. Like I feel like you could watch this episode in the Discovery timeline, like right before they come back from. You could just throw this into the Mirror Universe segment of Discovery because it probably takes place in that 9 months that the Discovery's gone. Remember, like Discovery went into the Mirror Universe, and then when it came back to this universe, like it was 9 months later, and the war had almost ended. Like it was at the end of the war when the Federation almost lost. So I don't know where Jagal fits in. They said a few years ago, right? Like they didn't give an exact
Yeah, I
date.
assume it's like 3 years or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I feel I feel like um they kind of balance the flashbacks and the present stuff pretty well. And if they'd lost that balance, then if I'm being honest, I was less interested in the flashback stuff. That just kind of informed the more interesting stuff in the present. If we'd had a whole episode, even though I liked the atmosphere it brought of that kind of stuff with the incoming transport again, and I would have got a bit tired of it because I feel like that did not have enough depth in the characters to substantiate a full story. It was definitely there to just service the meat and bones of this story, and it did very well. It was like a B plot that was feeding
You
into
know,
the main story.
I agree with you. And I also agree because for me, I think the performances were so great between I forget the name of the actor who plays Rawl, but he and he and
Thomas Wilson, is it? I don't know.
I don't
Robert?
remember. And Babs were phenomenal together. Like it would have been neat to hear more. Someone beat me to it, but there was the whole guess who's coming to dinner, like in Star Trek 6. There's a very interesting like connection to Star Trek 6. Like this, it's cool to see that the Enterprise hosted a Klingon and Federation diplomatic function, and it went terrible, just like the next time Gorkin dies. Like it was a cool, like, you know what I mean, like you just don't put ambassadors do not do not go on to the Enterprise if you want to live. But anyways, I like that parallel. But I felt, yes, Robbie, I felt less interested in the past stuff and more interested in what was that dynamic of like the kind of like what came up in Ortega's the hatred. It's in its fullest. What we saw in Star Trek 6 is like the end of that. That's like 20 years later or whatever. So it's amazing to see that this episode shows kind of like maybe the beginning of all these hostilities, because the Cold War is going to get worse with the Klingons, and then that leads to Praxis. It's neat. It is a neat history point. I don't know. It's cool. It's very. I actually just gave this episode another kudos that I hadn't thought about before.
It's interesting because I'm sure that there was a leaked photo of a Klingon. It came out a while back, but there was also there was a white Klingon. I'm sure there was a leaked photo, and we've not seen that Klingon. So
I don't know.
I don't know if we've got it in season 3 or no, it can't be season 3, but I don't know if we've got another Klingon coming up, or maybe it's a deleted thing.
I'm not really good at that stuff. There's a couple of guys on Twitter that like find all these leaked things, but I think I know what image you were talking about. My thing is, I would like to see a Discovery style Klingon alongside a TOS style Klingon with the TOS film TNG Klingons, because it's
like
obvious that
version.
it's obvious there's a lot of diversity in what Klingons look like, and I just like to I would just like to see those things represented on screen, and it'd be cool just for it's just like a little, not, I don't think it enhances or does anything to change the story, but it'd be neat.
I like
we can put that to rest finally.
I like the Andorian look.
Oh yeah, he was great. Oh, by the way, I have to make a note. Sorry to subject you to this, Robbie, and the audience, but I have a complaint. My only complaint about this episode. I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is the most. This is the one episode where I got the most episode husbands, and they all died. Every single episode husband was dead. So this is like Star Trek's most brutal episode husband, Starfleet So Hail thing. Like all those soldiers were they were my husband, and then they were killed. All the red shirts. They killed a lot of red shirts in this episode. It was sad. But the Andorian character was awesome. I liked his prosthetic, like the eye, the scar on the eye and all that stuff. It was very cool.
I feel like this episode did a lot to redeem that, because I hated that scene in episode 1, the broken circle with M'Benga and Chapel, and this felt a lot deeper. I feel like it would have been interesting, actually, if M'Benga had been there when Spock was toasting that Klingon, because that could have even, instead of just fighting Klingons, if he'd been there and he'd be, like, we saw that he was kind of tense, that would really have weaved better into this episode. It would just be like, the start of this arc for him, instead of him just, like, busting out the super serum and fighting people for like a 10-minute montage.
The super serum is a controversial thing too, because it seems like Dr. M'Benga formulated it out of some kind of desperation, and then the Andorian, do you remember his rank? Was he like a commander, right? Like the Andorian character?
I don't know.
Anyways, he's asking for it, and then so apparently Dr. M'Benga served on some kind of like covert operations mission beforehand. So he was
special forces.
That's special forces. There you go. So he, as a doctor, he invented ways to keep the soldiers in the fight, because Klingons were so formidable. He had to like figure out ways to do it. So that's an interesting layer to his character, and you could see him struggle, but he always carries it around like that. It is kind of interesting. And Chapel's, what did she say to him in the episode, like, why do you have this, or something like, did you ever stop carrying this or something? I don't know, it's something interesting, like that he had the fact that he had it, like, startled her, or made her like
Maybe
call attention to it.
maybe he'll use that stuff. No, I don't know. Do you think he'd ever like use that stuff again and it would just cause him to be very ill and then he would leave the show?
Well,
Maybe
where he's at as a character it's kind of interesting, and this is the part I think that, like, where there's certain fans are like, okay, this is a interesting development, and then other fans are really who are attached to kind of Dr. Mbenga and his more like, you know, um his baseline state, where he's like kind of a happy guy. He seems like a happy guy anyways. But when you see this, you're like, dang, Dr. Mbenga really suffers. It's like how O'Brien suffered, and like, like he lost his daughter. I mean, it's a happy thing. She's safe. She's untouched by disease. She's like, what is she, ascended, right? She's like a demigod or something like that, right? Like,
I feel like
it
she's
seems
like
like,
Q now.
what's that?
I feel like she's like Q now.
Yeah, but like confined to that cloud, I think, or so, or yeah, or maybe she's like cute. I really, regardless, the daughter's gone. Like, he doesn't get to read to Rukia. He doesn't get to like experience Rukia growing up. He doesn't get to like have fights with Rukia later when she's a teenager. Like whatever. Like, she came back instantly as like a woman, I think, in that episode, right? Like, that's like she was all grown up. That was it. Like, and I have to say, like, not to skip across the pond, haha, but that was one of the sad things about River Song, is that Amy and Rory never got to raise River, which is, it's really sad. They just, they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna take away your baby, and then here, we return her as like this, like, psychopath, basically, self-described. So yeah.
Who knows? Maybe even next. Imagine that. Imagine if the musical episode was actually influenced by by not Rukia's daughter, by Rukia.
Oh,
Imagine that was her using her abilities to turn the Enterprise into sing songs. Probably not, but and you could even have
Oh,
some
I
really
never thought of that. Q could totally make you start singing
yeah.
in a musical. Will we see Q?
No, no, that would be too much. That would be
It's never too much. Q is never too more. The more John Delancey in Star Trek, the better. I'm happy. I'm happy for Q. And this time period has a lot of these beings, by the way. Like, there's
maybe
Trelane, his people, which I think are the Q. It's the same. It's the same. Like, I think Trelane was just like a Q that was experimenting with being like, humanoid or something. I don't know.
I really hope we'll get some insight into more like some really funny insight into our characters um during the musical. Like we could have Mabenga singing about Klingons and his daughter. Like eh, we could have Chapel singing about, knowing that it's not going to end up right with Spock. We could have Pike talking about singing about his future.
I love all your speculating. I cannot speculate. I have to remove myself from the speculation. But we do have a question, which I think is interesting here. Dr. Mega's prognosis for himself is that he can't be fixed. I like that, by the way. It's very powerful, and I felt very connected to that. Only managed. How is he managing his stress disorder? That's a really good question. I kind of want to see more episodes about that, Jill, because I think many of us, for whatever reason, we all have to, we're living in a very like, in kind of like, tumultuous era ourselves. So I find this very therapeutic, and I would like to see Dr. Omega try to like manage that brokenness, because I think I don't know. I don't want to get too deep here on a Sunday Sunday morning. It's not even noon yet. But yeah, that speaks to me. What do you think, Robbie?
Um, I don't know, but I saw the teaser for next week and it looks pretty interesting because apparently Mabenga has two patients and he can only save one. One of them's human and the other is a Klingon, so it'll be interesting to see how that one goes.
For next week, you've seen that teaser?
Yeah.
Because next
I was
week's
did
the
you let
Rhapsody. Oh, God.
did you let the Klingon die, obviously.
Wow.
Yeah, that was
Yes.
my dog barking, that's why I had to
I took you seriously. I'm so
That
gullible.
would be interesting though if you had some kinda situation where
Oh my gosh.
you had
You
a
know, The
Klingon
Butcher of
patient.
Jagal could be a musical. I think that's like a
That sounds like a Grizzly musical.
like what there are Grizzly musicals. Like what's that one? The anyways. Uh let's see, what else have we not discussed? Oh yeah, so in the audience there, I guess did we decide, Robbie, where we did we express where we both stand on what actually happened?
Um, I'm not
Do you want
even
me
certain
to
myself, but
really? Okay.
I
I'm certain that this is what I think happened. Do you want to hear my head canon? Here, I'll tell you what I think happened. So, like the last thing that we see is like Dr. Mbenga putting the we should have like a speculation alert. I don't want to make the banner right now, but speculation. This is all speculation. We see the Klingon knife that he used to kill the other generals or soldiers or lieutenants or whatever, sitting in the box open. So, oh, Jill says no, Robbie first. Do you know? Do you want to express your idea? Or should I keep going? What
you can keep going.
okay. So I think that uh based on what they were discussing in that scene. Wow, so aggressive. Jill, behave yourself. Just kidding. Robbie, feel free to interrupt me if I'm carrying on. Okay. I think I'm getting heckled. Robbie,
I don't really
I
have anything to say about it. I'm not sure, Jill. I don't really know.
you said Jill, can you stop being Waldorf and what's the other one's name? She wants to hear, she already knows my take. She's right. So here, okay, all right. Let's reframe this. Robbie, which of the three which of the three things do you think Dr. Omega did? Like, which
Um,
is it? Is it murder? Okay, it's either murder, self-defense, or witness a suicide. Those are the
can you
three.
imagine if this was a proper murder mystery? Do you know what would happen? I feel like Chapel would be responsible in some way, but we'd only find out later on or something, you know?
Oh, interesting. I don't know.
But
Yeah, but what do you have a thought? Like, which side do you take? Or present another option too. You're welcome
well,
to present a fourth option.
how it's presented, I feel like it's difficult because I believe the writers said the director said they shot several different endings and they left
Mhm.
it up to the showrunners to choose. So there's probably one where we see Mabenga taking the action. Maybe there's
Yeah,
one
but
where
what's
Chapel
your?
does.
I guess we're
Um,
asking for your headcanon on this. Like,
um,
what do you think happened? Like
I
that
would
wasn't shown on screen.
I would like if it was Mabenga that did it because I feel like it's an interesting place to take the character. Um,
So you're on this. You're like saying that Dr. Omega actually murdered Rawl.
it's a bit dramatic, but
That's your okay.
it's probably not realistic as how the episode is
But
is
you like the direction that that's taking the character in. So
I think it's
it's
pretty bold, yeah.
intriguing. Interesting. Okay. I'm on the self-defense team. I thought we were on the same team. There you go, Jill. You got Robbie's
But
unfiltered.
but that was me talking about what I feel like would be interesting for the character. If we're
That's
talking
totally valid. That's like a
realistically,
I think that's totally valid.
yeah, I agree with
I
you.
I don't think that for me, I just cannot imagine Dr. Mbenga as we've seen him in Strange New Worlds. I think we have seen what I think in my mind is that we have seen the managing. Like we've already been seeing it. Like and he does a pretty good job. Like on the whole, I think Dr. Mbenga is very present in the moment. He's very encouraging. Like we've seen him do nothing but encouraging Chapel. Like he laments a bit and he's like, oh, like so I think we have seen the evidence that Dr. Mbenga is past the killing. He's done with it. He doesn't want to kill. You know what I mean? Like he keeps saying it over and over. I think the thing that's interesting that we're not yet where I would like to see us go is to see Starfleet kind of come to terms with their treatment of him and decide that like at some point enough is enough. Like you can't have a person continually subjected to these traumatic experiences. Like Dr. Omega is going to have to like I think that's an interesting way to like account for why we need a new CMO on the show. Not on this show, but like on TOS. Like, why is Dr. McCoy the chief medical officer? Why does Dr. Mbenga step down from that position? So I think this is kind of leading to that, which I like. But I also am a firm believer that he reacted like it was just instinctual. Like when Rawl grabs him, he kept saying, "Stay back." It's like I don't know how many times Dr. Mbenga had to say like, "Leave me alone. Don't come near me. I don't want to interact with you." And Rawl kept ignoring that. I think that's very aggressive behavior. And I think regardless of whether you have PTSD or not, Dr. Mbenga has a reflex. That's what he did. He fought like he was in the special forces. He had to fight hand to hand with Klingons. Hand to hand combat is gonna happen for sure. Like there's no doubt. That's what they prefer. And so I think I don't know. I really think that it was all down to self defense and reflex.
It's I love the discussion that it's bringing out because it's showing all these different perspectives. Wait, this could have happened, that could have happened. That's just such a creative ending that they've built to keep the audience engaged and talking about it. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
you just
100%.
said, "Oh, I just said it would have been interesting if Chapel had done it." Maybe there's like I could see a cut where Chapel is increasingly frustrated at this guy talking about peace, and she kind of says, "Mabenga, can you do something about this?" But that wouldn't that'd probably be too dark for Chapel, in my opinion. And we don't see any real
But it's
indication that
also possible again, we switch perspectives to Chapels, and that's the last thing we see. We don't really and then we see him fall to the floor, I guess, with the knife in
but she
his
just happened to come in, so I don't think there's
it's very
anything
there's
that
so many
happened.
possibilities. I do think
Or if
that
he committed
it's
suicide, it
quite
could have been out
yeah.
of honor because he realized that that his lies are gonna be torn down and he's gonna be disgraced. Who knows? That would
This is
maybe
the
be an
new
honorable death.
Tuvix. I feel like this is gonna be no one ever has one, consensus on Tuvix either, I've noticed. I think this is gonna be that. Well, very cool. We're at the hour. It's time to go. I think we covered everything. Do you want to hear my rating? It's a 10.
You had to think about that, didn't you?
I did have to think about
Mhm.
it. Yeah. What
Yeah,
about
I'd
you?
agree, it's definitely a 10 for me. I feel like this episode and surprisingly Lost in Translation, which was kind of a mediocre plot, but I feel like all the character stuff was great. And um, the courtroom episode are probably my favorites so far.
Very cool. Well, the other good news is that Trek on the Tube caught up finally, so he's current. So next week, we might see him on the stream as well, talking about the I think what's going to be the first ever musical episode of Star Trek. It's also the first ever musical episode of a show that I've ever seen. I've always wanted a musical episode of Star Trek. I've wanted one since I never saw it, but since I heard Buffy doing it, like that a show did it. I think Buffy was the first show that I heard about that did that kind of thing. And I was like, oh, when is Star Trek going to do that? And it
Wardeck
finally
feels like the most likely candidate.
No, I feel like it has to happen when it happens, and now is when it happens. So yes, I'm here for it. But I would have liked to have seen it on Discovery personally.
That doesn't really
That's
fit with the show, though. The show's got these overarching, more serious, plot-driven kind of. If you had like a musical episode during an end of the universe type scenario, I don't feel like it would meld very well.
Discovery had it just has like a lot of musical theater talent on board that I love. Like Anthony Rapp is a really great singer. I don't know if you've ever seen Rent. I highly recommend seeing Rent. It's a great musical. Speaking of musicals, by the way, are you a fan of the musical genre, Robbie? Do you like
I
musicals?
I am, but I've not really really ever went to them on purpose. You know, the closest I've got to them is, you know, pantomime theater, but we
Oh,
rarely go to those. I love, you know, I love the idea of a musical, and I've actually wanted
interesting.
to explore that more.
Have you
I
seen like
love
the
the
Sound of
energy
Music?
and the freedom,
Have you
but
seen the Sound of Music? Have you seen
no.
that one? Oh, you gotta watch Sound of Music. That's like a pre. How about did you see Steven Spielberg's recreation of West Side Story by any chance?
Oh wait, 2 seconds.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
I Jill said that she's not heard any good reviews about this one, but I'm pretty sure that the what you call them, the screeners only went out for when we got the original reviews for Strange New World season 1, it was all the way up to the Boimler episode, I'm pretty sure, and that was it.
Oh, I don't know.
So they wouldn't have got this episode. They wouldn't have even got this one that we're talking about. Or maybe they did. I don't know. I could be wrong. Some have seen it.
I think that many have seen up to the musical episode by now. Many of the industry folks, like
Well, I've not
and
heard any reviews apart from the.
by the way, this is a good opportunity. There's still folks tuned in, so we here at Starfleet So Hail, and I think Robbie agrees, we support SAG-AFTRA and WGA and the strike, and you know, we have to keep supporting the actors, but it just really bothers me that the money and all these subscription services are going up in price. Like it really bothers me that the money that I pay doesn't go directly to the talent, because that's what I tune in for at the end of the day, is to watch these amazing performances and see great writing. And yeah, so pay fairly, and let's get to a deal. Please don't be evil corporations. I know you are evil corporations, but please stop. I actually wanted to unsubscribe from all of the services, and I think I still might. It'll save me quite a bit of money.
He says that knowing he won't be able to watch Star Trek.
It's okay. You could still get Star Trek. Romulans from the future, they're always trying to get stuff in the past.
Isn't that stuff illegal?
No, they're Romulans. They
That
don't
was
care
supposed to be
about.
a callback, Romulan Ale.
Oh yeah, that was a good. You're so deep with your callbacks, man. They keep going over my head. That was a good one, though. Actually, that was a really good one. Wow, Robbie, you should watch TOS again.
I've
putting you
tried.
on the
I don't.
spot.
I don't.
I'm putting
Apart
you on the
from some
spot
of the
here.
key episodes like Spark and Mock and Balance of Terror, there are just a lot of episodes I don't really find very interesting, and I just turn off. I'm sorry. I know
I
that's
do
a
have to I
disappointment.
do have to say, so yeah, unsubscribing supports the studios who want to cut back, and it's true. Unfortunately, it's like a weird double-edged sword. But what I've done is I've unsubscribed to some of the, like, I'm only still subscribed to Paramount Plus at the moment, and I've reallocated the money that I was spending on the other subscriptions to the fund that keeps the actors kind of, not just the actors but all the industry folks affected by the strike, um, in the game, so to speak, so that they're supported and they get, things like groceries or money for rent and stuff like that. So if you do have a little extra income to give, I think that's a great place to give it. So yeah. And it's an official, there's two. There's one that's officially associated with SAG-AFTRA, and I forget the other one at the moment, but I'll try to
WGA?
find them and retweet them. What's that?
WGA?
Yeah, but there's like these two charities or organizations that support them during strikes. That supports the workers during strikes, which that's where I've been giving money. And and supporting like independent artists. Oh, great! Look, Cake Eternal posted it all, so that's perfect. Thank you, Cake. You rule. All right, Robbie, do you have anything to promote before we go off live? And thank you, audience. Another great stream. Oh my gosh, this this is very casual and very informal. The only thing we didn't do is have sandwiches while we were discussing, but I think this was one of my favorite casual and informal discussions.
I have
Thanks
the
for.
same recommendation from last week, which is go and see Oppenheimer. It's fantastic.
Oh gosh, I gotta go see it.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta go see it. And Barbie. Have you
It's one
seen
of my
Barbie
favorite
yet?
films, actually. Just a
Have you
great
seen
biopic.
Barbie? Do you intend to see
No,
Barbie?
I've not seen Barbie, but I do intend to.
Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, I want to see Barbie as well. I'm excited about both. All right. Well, the only thing I have to promote is that we try to do these on Saturdays because we've been doing them pre-recorded, but lately we've just decided to go live on the fly, and it's been fun. I appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in, and anyways, live long and prosper, and we will see you next time. Oh, I gotta do the thing. Here we go. Ah.